Have to cut it off there. Mr. Garrison, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to Ms. Telford for being with us today. I must admit I am a bit bemused by why my colleagues from the Liberal Party turned somersaults to prevent the invitation being issued to you. I'm still a little perplexed about some things you've told us. And let me start with the one which I think you rightfully raised the issue of safety. And we know that if women are going to be able to serve equally in the Canadian Forces, there has to be that sense of safety there. But you said that you didn't know the nature of the complaint, you didn't have any details, yet you asked if it was a question of safety, and you were assured that it was not. How could you know that if you knew nothing about the nature of the complaint or its details?
It's a fair question that I can only tell you what I know, and that I asked that question because I was getting no information, because it seemed that nothing further can be done, and because I was very concerned and I was taking this very seriously. And I was then given this assurance, and that's all I can speak to.
So I'm going to leave that there, although I would, it is an interesting question of how someone could assure you of that, and I trust you'll follow up on that. Based on the statement you made just a few minutes ago in answer to a question, you said that you knew that the minister had been offered an envelope. And there's a tendency to refer to the allegations of misconduct against General Vance as rumors. These were not rumors. These were a complaint that was brought to the attention of the Ombudsman, for which there was evidence both of the nature of the complaint and of the details of that complaint. These were offered to the minister, and he refused to look at them. You indicated that you were aware of that. When were you aware of the fact that the Minister of Defence refused to look at the evidence of this complaint that was offered by the Ombudsman?
So I would just like to remind you through the chair that the only reason I believe that you or any of us know what was in the envelope was because of the public reporting in March. And at the time, in March of 2021, just to be clear, in March of 2018, I was aware from the original brief, I believe, that I received on this, that there was an envelope. I had absolutely no idea what was in it, nor did anybody else. And it was one of the reasons that we were determined to take the appropriate steps to follow up.
But that information was clearly offered to the Minister of Defence, so it seems peculiar that you didn't take the shortest route to finding out by asking him to have a look at the evidence that he was being offered. But just a minute ago, you also said at the time you knew it was possible that the allegation was of sexual misconduct. And I guess my question here is, given that Madame Deschamps' report existed and said that sexual misconduct was basically rampant in the Canadian military, didn't this ring a bell with you? Because this was an alarm bell, I guess I would say, because this is a complaint against the person in charge of rooting out sexual misconduct in the military. So it would seem to me that you would want to make sure that this is not what that complaint was about. Quite apart from the complainant, this is about the policies and procedures of the Canadian Armed Forces in dealing with sexual misconduct. So did you not think it would be important to figure out whether or not this was a sexual misconduct complaint at that time?
So there's a couple of things there as well, and I want to try to deal with both, at least two of the things you've touched on. One is, why not the shortest route as you suggested it? And what I would just remind you is that the minister came to seek advice after this unusual circumstance through his office, and the advice given from the independent Privy Council office that manages human resources across government, governor and council appointments, their advice was to redirect the ombudsperson to the Privy Council office. So unless you're suggesting we ignore that advice, that is the advice that we were given in terms of next steps by the appropriate people.
But we've had no testimony saying that they told him he could not look at that evidence. They suggested another path, but no one has testified here saying that they advised the minister he could not look at that evidence. We have not heard that in this committee.
Well, certainly what the advice was to myself and to Mr. Marquez, to Elder at the time, was that it should be the Privy Council office responsible for the management of governor and council appointments across governments looking into these things. I don't think you would want political staff, let alone politicians, looking into, doing their own investigations.
But no one's suggesting the minister should have investigated. But what we are saying, and I'm certainly saying it very clearly, is that he did need to find out whether there was a sexual misconduct complaint against the chief of defense staff who was in charge of rooting out sexual misconduct in the Canadian military. This is not just, I don't want to demean any other complaints, but not just a run-of-the-mill complaint about sexual misconduct. This is against the person who was in charge of rooting it out in the Canadian military, which is what makes this different from all the others.
I would remind you that we didn't know the nature of the complaint at all at the time. And so that is why we were trying to take the appropriate steps to follow up. We were taking it very seriously, however, right from the get-go. And I would also remind you that is, this is one of the reasons I did ask that safety question and get assurance on it.
But if you can I just ask one more quick question here?
Quick one.
If you didn't think this was a sexual misconduct complaint, what kind of complaint did you think it was?
I think as you can, I think you even actually asserted just a moment ago that there are many other types of complaints. So I'm not going to get into speculating on what they could have been, but there are many different types of complaints that can come forward.
All right. Thank